Now, how wide should you go? For me, I try to go about 70% of what my actual width is. And I go to a point where if I can sit in a straddle position upright, could be on a blanket, and I don't really feel much of a stretch. I feel maybe just a subtle sensation of stretch in the inner thighs and hamstrings, okay? Now, the basic understanding is toes and knees up to the sky. Keeping that, start to move your inner groins down to the ground. So pubic bone starts to move down to the ground. Let's apply the same actions. First, micro bend the knees and press your heels down into the earth like you're trying to smush the ground down further, and that should get your hamstrings ignited. Holding that for a few breaths to tire out the hamstring muscles can be super, it can be very helpful for the next step. Even if you just completely let it go afterwards, it's gonna be helpful just to sustain that for a little bit. So I'm pressing the legs down, a little micro bend in the knees so that I'm making sure that I'm not confusing the trajectory from the hip. I'm pressing the heels down, which I guess can be confusing too, but ultimately I'm trying not to put the pressure into the knee as much. Okay, then release the knees. Push outward now. Again, that's why we didn't go to our fullest extent. Push outward, and as you do so, look at your knees and make sure they don't roll in. That's why I like to turn the toes a little bit, turn the toes out, and it's gonna feel like you're turning your legs out, but actually you're keeping your legs where they are and pressing the legs apart to turn the pelvis into more anterior tilt. Now I would hold here because now I'm feeling personally, now I feel the stretch in my adductor muscles. So what do I do once I feel a stretch in my adductor muscles? I start to draw two ideas. I can press the heels down and think about micro tucking my tailbone, or I can suction the thigh bones into the hip sockets. Woo! Now that TFL that we talked about earlier can really start to ignite, and it pulls my hips forward more. But now I'm trying to pull my feet toward each other, which is very confusing. You can kind of see my yoga mat is starting to scrunch up over here because I'm dragging the feet inward to the midline. Not so much that I'm gonna strain anything, but enough that I am feeling like I could actually, I'll show you, lift my hands up without really freaking out because my legs are pressing down and drawing in. Okay, there's some power there where I'm not just falling into my hands, okay? Where there's some strength here. Now, a lot of people, if they lift their hands up, they wouldn't be strong enough to do that, and as a result, it would overstretch because they'd fall forward, so I don't suggest doing it. Okay, now, pause. Assess where you're at. My suggestion is you can do one of two things. If you want to continue bowing forward, is to return back to pressing the legs apart, okay? Otherwise, and groins back, you're trying to hollow out, you could, if you want, start to transition with your hips forward more, increasing or decreasing the angle, I suppose, to be more a same angle pose. Okay, now I feel a deeper stretch in the adductors here. I'm gonna press the legs down for a moment, activate them, and I said in the email to us that it really requires patience. It requires a tremendous amount of patience to get into this pose properly. And you know, the body, it's an extreme posture, so you don't want to put it too, through too much of the ringer. You wanna go there slowly and respect it, okay? And then the same idea, I'm feeling like I'm towards my end range here, so I'm not gonna go much further. I'm just gonna start to keep my legs suctioning inward. But you could press depending on where you are in your range, you could press your legs outward and move the groins back like we did in side angle, pubic bone back. All right. And to come out, I like to use my hands. Woo-sa. Woo, daddy.